There is a bottle on my workshop shelf that costs about $2 every time I use it, and my father's car has 410,000 kilometers on it with an engine that has never once been opened. Most people believe an engine wears out from driving it hard, from heat, from long trips, from the highway. Almost none of it happens there. It happens in the first 15 seconds after you turn the key on a cold morning, when there is barely any oil left on the metal at all. So what do you do about 15 seconds you cannot avoid? It is 5:40 in the morning, winter, the kind of cold where the door handle sticks to your fingers and you have to breathe on the lock before the key will turn. My father is in the driver's seat of a white Toyota with a taxi light bolted to the roof. I am 9 years old, in the back, school bag on my knees, because he drops me at the school gate before he picks up his first fare of the day. He turns the key. The engine catches, and for about 2 seconds it makes a sound I can still hear in my head 30 years later. A dry sound. A light rattle from the top of the engine up under the valve cover, like a small handful of stones shaken in a tin can. Then it smooths out and goes quiet, and it does not come back for the rest of the day. I asked him once what that noise was. He said, "That is the engine asking for oil." He was right. He did not know how right he was. My name is Lu Feng. I have had my hands inside engines for 26 years. I started as an apprentice at 17 in a shop that worked on nothing but Japanese cars. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mitsubishi, second-hand by the container load, already old and already tired. I have pulled apart engines with 100,000 kilometers on them that looked like a scrapyard inside, scored bores, cam lobes worn flat, metal glitter sitting in the bottom of the oil pan like silver dust. And I have pulled apart engines with 600,000 kilometers on them, where you could still see the honing marks on the cylinder walls. The crosshatch pattern, the factory cut into the metal, still there. Same model, same roads, same fuel, same factory. Quick word before I go further, the old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book you can buy in our pinned comment below. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. The difference was never how they were driven. I want to say that clearly at the start, because it is the whole video. The difference was what was sitting on the metal at 6 in the morning, before the engine ever turned over. I did not learn this from a book. I learned it because I destroyed an engine. I was 22. I had a Nissan with a small 4-cylinder in it, and I was proud of that car. I changed the oil early, never late. I bought the expensive oil, the silver bottle, 3 times the price of the normal one, because I thought that was what careful people did. I never revved it cold. I babied that engine. In February, the camshaft failed. The rebuild cost me 6,000 yuan. That was close to 3 months of my wage at the time. I carried the camshaft into the shop wrapped in a rag like a dead animal, and I put it down on the bench in front of the old man who ran the place. His name was Master Joe, and he had been building engines since before I was born. He picked it up, turned it in the light. 2 of the lobes were not lobes anymore. They were flat, with a bright silver scar across the top where the metal had been rubbed clean away. He did not ask me what oil I used. He did not ask me how I drove. He asked me one question. How far do you drive in the morning? 2 kilometers, I said, to work and back. He put the camshaft down on the bench and he said, "That is what killed it. I stood there and I did not understand. 2 kilometers, gentle. No load, no speed, the easiest driving a car can possibly do. I had been treating that engine like a newborn, and the treating was the thing that killed it. I went home angry that night, not at him, at myself. Because I had been in that shop 5 years by then, and I had walked past the answer every single day. Think about what I had been looking at. 400 engines, maybe more, by the age of 22. All the same models, all stripped for parts on the same bench. Some of them beautiful inside, some of them ruined, and I had never once asked why. I assumed it was luck, a bad batch, somebody who drove like a fool. It was none of those things. The ruined ones had all lived the same life, and I had been living it too. So here is the question I want you to hold on to, because everything else in this video comes out of it. Why would the gentlest 2 kilometers of my week eat a camshaft, while my father's taxi, driven 400 kilometers a day for 15 years, still has an engine nobody has ever needed to open? The answer is gravity. That is it. That is the whole thing. It is not complicated, and almost nobody tells you. Oil is a liquid. When your engine is running, the oil pump pushes it everywhere. Up through the galleries, through the bearings, over the camshaft, down the cylinder walls. Under pressure. Constant supply. Everything floating on a film of oil so thin you cannot see it, so that no 2 pieces of metal in there ever actually touch each other. When you switch the engine off, the pump stops. It does not have a battery. It does not keep going quietly in the background. It stops the same second the engine does, and the oil starts falling. It falls off the camshaft. It falls off the valve train. It runs down the cylinder walls. It drains out of the top of the engine and down into the pan at the bottom, and it takes maybe 20 minutes to do it. And by the time your car has been sitting outside your house for 6 hours overnight. Essentially, every drop of oil in your engine is lying in a black pool at the lowest point. The parts at the top of the engine have nothing left on them but a memory of oil. Now you turn the key. The engine spins. Metal starts moving against metal hundreds of times a second, and the oil pump, which has just woken up, has to pull oil from the very bottom of the engine, push it through a cold filter, up through narrow passages, all the way to the top. That takes time, not long. Somewhere between 5 and 15 seconds on most engines. Longer when it is cold, because cold oil is thick and moves like honey out of a jar. That rattle I heard in the back of my father's taxi when I was 9 years old, that is the sound of the top of an engine running without oil, waiting for the pump to get there. Every cold start, every single one, for the life of the car. And it gets worse, because cold does 2 more things that nobody mentions. When the engine is cold, the computer dumps in extra fuel just to make it run. Raw fuel is a solvent. It washes down the cylinder walls and strips off whatever thin film of oil was still clinging there. And water, which is a completely normal product of burning fuel, condenses inside a cold engine and mixes into the oil, where it turns into acid and sludge. An engine only boils that water back out once it is properly hot. Not warm. Hot. Which takes 15 to 20 minutes of actual driving, not 2. So look at what I was doing to that Nissan. 2 kilometers to work, cold start, maximum wear, engine never gets hot, water stays in the oil. Then it sits for 9 hours and goes stone cold again. Then 2 kilometers home, another cold start, another dose of maximum wear. The 2 worst events in an engine's life, twice a day, 5 days a week, for 4 years. My expensive silver bottle did nothing to help, because the problem was never the quality of the oil. The problem was that the oil was in the pan. Now look at my father. 1 cold start. Then 400 kilometers with the engine hot, the water boiled out, the oil film unbroken, everything working exactly the way the engineers drew it. He got 1 wear event a day. I was getting 2, and mine were worse. He drove that car like a taxi, because it was a taxi, and his engine outlived mine by 300,000 kilometers. Here is what the industry tells you to do about all this. Buy better oil, buy full synthetic, come in every 5,000 kilometers. Add this cleaner, add that flush. None of it touches the actual problem, and I want you to understand why, because this is the sentence that changes everything. You do not need better oil. You need oil that is still on the metal when the engine is switched off. And here is the hard part. A liquid cannot do that. It does not matter how expensive it is, how synthetic it is, what color the bottle is, or whose face is on the label. Liquid on a vertical piece of metal runs downhill. That is physics, and no oil company has found a way to repeal it. So, if a liquid cannot stay, then something that is not a liquid has to. That is what is in the bottle on my shelf. The stuff is called molybdenum disulfide. Molybdenum is a metal. Nobody in my shop says the whole word. We all just say moly. And it is not really a liquid at all, even though it comes in a bottle. It is a solid ground so fine you cannot feel a single grain of it between your fingers, suspended in oil so that it can be poured. It has one strange property, and that property is the entire reason this video exists. Under heat and pressure, moly bonds itself to steel. It plates onto the metal in a thin, slippery layer. And here is the part that matters. It stays there. When the oil drains down at night, the moly does not drain with it. It is on the camshaft in the morning. It is on the bores in the morning. It is sitting on the exact surfaces that spend the first 15 seconds of every day rubbing against each other with nothing else between them. It is the oil that is still there when the engine is asleep. This is not a folk remedy out of somebody's shed, either. Go and read the specification sheets for the factory oils sold for Japanese engines, the thin ones, the 0W20 grades. They are dosed with moly compounds straight from the factory. It is one of the quiet reasons those small engines survive things they have no business surviving. Now let me tell you exactly what to do, in the order I do it. Step 1 is the cap. Before you buy anything at all, open your bonnet and read the oil filler cap. There will be a grade printed on it, 0W20, 5W30, 10W40. Whatever it says, that is what your engine wants. Do not guess, and do not let a man behind a counter talk you into something thicker, because thicker sounds stronger. In a modern engine, thicker oil takes longer to climb to the top on a cold morning. And you have just spent this whole video learning why those seconds matter. Thicker is not safer. Thicker is slower. Step 2 is the bottle. You want a molybdenum oil additive. In most countries, it runs between $8 and $18 for a bottle that treats one oil change, which works out to a few dollars a service if you change your oil twice a year. Read the back of the bottle and make sure it actually says molybdenum, or MOS2. If the label only talks about cleaning or restoring or flushing, put it down. That is a different product doing a different job. Here is the trick on step 2, and this is the one to rewind for. Do not tip it into old oil. Add it to fresh oil at the change before you start the engine. Then drive the car normally for 20 minutes so the engine comes fully up to temperature. The plating only forms under heat and pressure. If you pour it in and then leave the car sitting in the driveway for a week, you have wasted the bottle. Now I have to stop and be honest with you about something, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. You will see big numbers thrown around about these additives. Wear cut by 90%, 95%, whatever the label wants to print that month. Those numbers come from laboratory rigs. A machine presses two pieces of steel together, spins them, and somebody measures the scar afterwards. Under those conditions, the results are real, and they are dramatic. But a laboratory rig is not your engine. Your engine has fuel washing the bores, water in the oil, a thermostat, a driver, and weather. I'm not going to hand you a percentage because I have never measured one, and neither has the man selling you the bottle. What I will tell you is what I have seen with my own two hands over 26 years of opening engines up. The ones that got moly and got driven hot look better inside at 400,000 kilometers than the ones that did not look at 200,000. That is my evidence. Take it for exactly what it is worth and no more. Step 3 is free, and it matters more than the bottle does. When you start a cold engine, count to 15 before you put it in gear. That is all. 15 seconds is roughly what the pump needs to fill the top of the engine. Put your seatbelt on. Adjust the mirror. Then go. Step 4 is the one nearly everybody gets backwards. Do not sit there idling for 10 minutes to warm it up. An idling engine warms up very slowly, and the whole time it idles, it is running rich and washing your cylinder walls with raw fuel. The fastest way to get an engine hot is to drive it gently under light load, low revs, no hard acceleration, nothing above half throttle until the temperature needle has lifted off the bottom. 5 minutes of gentle driving beats 20 minutes of sitting still. Step 5 is for anyone whose week looks like mine did. If all you do is short trips, take one long run a week. 20 minutes minimum, continuous, at proper road speed. That is the run that boils the water back out of your oil. Sunday morning, drive somewhere you do not need to go. That drive is cheaper than a camshaft. Step 6. Change your oil by the calendar, as well as by the distance. 6 months, even if you have barely driven the car. Especially if you have barely driven the car. Oil that has sat in a cold engine collecting water and acid all winter is not clean just because the number on the odometer never moved. And one warning, because I have watched this go wrong. If you ride a motorcycle where the engine and the gearbox share the same oil, do not put moly in it. A wet clutch needs friction to grip, and moly exists to remove friction. Your clutch will slip. Cars are fine. Wet clutch motorcycles are not. Read your manual. That is the whole system. A bottle, a count of 15, and one long drive a week. Now let me tell you why nobody told you this before, because I think that is the real point of the video. For most families, the car is the second most expensive thing they own. Behind the house, ahead of everything else. And an engine rebuild costs more than most people have sitting in the bank. When an engine dies at 180,000 kilometers, that family does not just lose an engine. They lose the car because the repair is worth more than the car, and then they borrow money to replace it. I have watched it happen across my counter more times than I can count. A man comes in, I tell him the number, and I watch his whole year change on the other side of the desk. Nobody in the repair trade is hiding this from you. I want to be fair about that, but nobody is paid to tell you either. A workshop earns money when something breaks. There is no line on any invoice anywhere that says, taught the customer to count to 15. The knowledge is not a secret. It is just worth nothing to the only people who have it. Master Joe said something to me the week I paid for that rebuild, and I have thought about it for 20 years since. He said, an engine does not die from what you do to it. It dies from what was not there while you were not looking. You do not save an engine on the road. You save it in the driveway in the dark while it is asleep, and you are asleep. And there is nothing at all between the camshaft and the metal except whatever you left there the last time you drove it. There is one more thing worth saying. Every engine that dies early gets replaced by an engine that has to be built, mined, cast, machined, shipped halfway around the world. The greenest car on Earth is the one already parked outside your house, still running at 400,000 kilometers. Keeping an engine alive is not only a money decision, it is the only kind of recycling that costs you nothing. So here's what I want you to do tonight, before you forget this video. Go outside, open the bonnet, read the oil filler cap, and write the grade down, on the back of your hand or in your phone. It does not matter which. That is the whole task, and it takes 40 seconds. Most people who own a car cannot tell you what grade of oil is inside it. Do not be most people. Then tomorrow morning, when you start the engine, do not touch the gear lever. Count to 15. Listen while you count. If you hear a light rattle from the top of the engine for the first second or two, you have just heard exactly what I heard in the back of my father's taxi when I was 9 years old. That is your engine asking for oil. Tell me in the comments what you drive, how many kilometers are on it, and whether you can hear the rattle. I read them. I am curious how many of you have been listening to that sound your entire life without ever knowing what it was. Next time, I am going to show you a 2-minute test using nothing but a sheet of white paper and your exhaust pipe, done first thing in the morning before the engine has warmed up. That tells you whether your engine is burning oil or burning coolant, and which one of the two it is, months before any warning light comes on. It costs nothing. It has saved my customers more money than any tool in my workshop. Until then, keep it hot, keep it clean, and remember that the metal does not care what you spent. It only cares what is on it at 6 in the morning.